Right, guys, good to talk about tools and I guess I call them aids or the various um, components of my trade for doing RC mods and builds, as well as my electronics hobby, microcontroller builds, LED needle strip builds, you name it. My hobby workbench has a whack load of tools, but I have sort of a core set of tools that my go-to tools. So, we're going to talk a bit about space of stuff you can buy, as well as stuff that you can print. Some of these I have modeled myself. You can find links in the description to a lot of this stuff. You'll find links to my Maker World account where you can download the 3D prints that I'm going to show you. That again I have modeled. I'll also link to the ones that I have downloaded from others in there to let you get those as well. So let me sort of start with sort of the, I guess, more obvious and standard stuff and get them out of the way real quick, and then I'll move on to things, maybe point out a few things that you're like, maybe get a few aha moments that might help you with what you do for your own hobbies. Slide clamp, pretty obvious. I have about 5 or 6 of these. Very useful when I'm gluing my 3D printed parts together. Allows me to get into sort of tight spaces. So glasses, I need to have, these are 1.5x. As I age, I find my vision is going, especially for close-up work. So between glasses and that's a 10x magnifier. Those things are sort of must-haves for me these days. Real obvious stuff, again, your typical RC tools for different hex nuts, as well as hex drivers. That's an ARMA unit. For small 4mm drivers, I also have a bunch of these, as well as, let me just put it over real quick here. For very light work, my Wow Stick 4mm driver as well, so I can do work with that. So yeah, that's quite useful. Also, my turbojet fan. Let me just fire this guy up real quick here so you can see. But this thing I use quite a bit. I'm just going to quickly turn it on here. You probably won't get this, sense via this video how good this is, but it's quite powerful. And I use this for cleaning mostly I do crawling most all the time, and basically when I wash my crawler after a crawl, I'll get outside and I'll blast off the sort of tight areas and whatnot, and that really helps prevent rust from building up in those spaces you just can't get dry any other way. So highly recommend this. Again, link in the description. What else am I going to show you? Let me show you these guys. So these I just got. So I find myself doing a lot of projects where I'm modeling sort of 3D parts, and it might fit together, and I need to sort of line up holes or line up to drill holes from one part to another. And I found myself in many cases where I have to go through a part that's a few millimeters or even an inch, and mark a hole. And yeah, you could put a drill bit in there if you want, or you might have a pin and you can do that, but then you're having to sort of locate the hole with from my sight. In this case here, and this is not a great example because it doesn't have a hole at the other end, but if this did, I could insert this in and find the center point, or even center the circle off, and basically use it to draw the circle on the other side. So I just got those. Looking forward to using them. Again, linked in the description. They're from AliExpress, black and a red depending on the color I'm printing on. What else? So this guy, I talked a bit about this. You can check my videos out. I've done a more thorough review on this. This is the Worx WX242. WX242. You can't get this in North America, and this is why I really wanted to talk about this really quick. But I love this thing. This thing has saved me, saved my wrists from probably premature arthritis with the amount of times I've had to use it and the amount of screws or bolts that I've driven. It's powerful. It has torque control, and it also even will stop the motor when it hits the torque setting, so it doesn't keep rattling at it. So highly recommend this. Again, because I'm talking about this, my MIP drivers, obviously, if you do RC work, I highly recommend these guys. They blow all the others out of the water. They're strong. They don't easily damage, even when you're driving. Obviously the metal here is harder than any other metal you're driving, or at least in my case, because they are just keep holding strong. Again, 6mm hex ends on these, so I do a lot of the 6mm hex end work, and I'll talk a bit more about other things here. This guy here, it's a drill bit adapter, so this way I can actually get like some fine drilling in. So yeah, again, I don't have a lot of metric hex head drill bits, but this allows me to do fine drilling. It's not high speed, but when you're doing hobby work, especially if you're doing 3D parts, at least in my case, I don't need to have, you know, a high-speed drill going here. And quite frankly, it melts the plastic anyway if you're drilling too fast. So for quick jobs, it's just does the trick for me. So I find it highly useful. Couple adapter pieces that I've modeled and printed. So in this case here, when you might buy those drivers that are just, they're sort of a flat or round shaft with a flat notch in them, and they're special driver heads, or whatever you call them, ends that you get for them. But I don't have those, and so anyway, I modeled this guy up. That's basically 6mm adapter to this, and it has this little insert sort of locks in the slot in there. So yeah, so I just use that, and I can then hook it into this guy. Works well. I also modeled up one for, in this case here, I have a few of these where I have 5mm drivers. So most of them are either 6 hex head drivers, or if I can find my other little screwdriver, this guy, or 4mm drivers. And so in this case, I've actually have a few, I don't even know where they are, but 5mm drivers. So I did 6-5 adapter just to, again, allow me to do quick swaps with things. And let me sort of carry that on to this conversation of this guy. So again, for most of my drivers, I'm using 6mm hex. And I do a lot of work where I don't need to use this. I just need to do some quick jobs, quick unscrewing or tightening up something. And I modeled up these guys that just slide on to the 6mm driver and allow you to do quick work, and you can swap them between your different drivers. So I use this far more than I realized I was going to use it. And on that note, because I've got this, I've also got this to fit, so I can actually adapt to the 5mm, and quite frankly, I could do a 4mm easily as well. Just, again, highly useful little tool. Torches. So I have a couple of these guys here. I find these indispensable. So again, I do a lot of 3D modeling, and in many cases, and I'll use this as an example, I might model a part where I want to self-tap into the material. You know, I could use brass inserts. I do have those as well, but sometimes I don't need super strength, so I just self-tap. And to do that, what I'll do is I'll typically model for a 3mm hex unit. I'll model a 2.5 mil, maybe even a 2 mil hole. And then what I'll do is when it's done, I might sort of just ream out the very end of that hole. And I'll show you my reamer since we're talking about it. So I might ream out 1 millimeter or 2 at the end of the hole just to widen it out to this, to the hex size, right? And then basically get the torch out and heat this guy up. So heat that guy up only for maybe 5 seconds, not a lot. Like it's hot enough that you can't hold in your finger, but it's not too hot that it would just melt through the plastic. And then with this guy, I'll just drive it through into the product or into the material, and then leave it there for 20-30 seconds to cool down. And what it does, it actually forms a really good bonded thread in there, right? So that thread cools down. And then it forms a thread, and then I have sort of a self-tapped end result. So do that a lot, and it actually holds up quite well. Again, when I really need something to hold tight, I'll use the brass inserts or brass inset units and put those in instead. While I have this, I also have a number of different bits. In this case, I modeled this really simple. This is out of the TPU material, so it's flexible. Not super flexible, but flexible enough that it makes it easy to get things in and out. But just a bit holder. So I modeled that up just really quickly. That can be printed off as well. This guy, a deburring tool, again, find this really useful. You do 3D prints. Oftentimes I'll do a brim on my 3D prints, or I'll just have support materials have to get off. And this guy allows you to just sort of scrape that off, and it's got a sharp edge. Highly recommend these guys here. They're only a couple bucks on AliExpress. Again, you'll find links to these in the description. And then once I'm done deburring, you'll often find, if you experience this yourself, you'll get sort of a white result left behind, and then you can use your torch to quickly melt away that it'll change the color back, so you don't have to burn it. You just have to give it a light warming up with that guy. So again, another good reason for that. Other tools that I use really quickly, you know, X-Acto knife, just for helping again to remove support materials or the remnants of brims. This guy here, I find I use this all the time when I'm picking out, I have to pick out supports from holes and whatnot. So I use it to sort of dig into the hole to pick it out and kind of smooth out inside there. So highly useful, that tool there. This is actually, I think they call them a shucking tool. They were originally for oysters, but this came with my Lulzbot Mini 3D printer years ago. And again, I use it for cleaning up supports. So not that this had supports, but when you often get supports, and if you can't get your Z distance right, top Z distance right, it'll leave behind material that you have to get off. So I use this to sort of scrape it off, and it does a really good job of doing that as well. So highly useful there. This guy. So if you do any soldering and you don't have a sort of third hand tool, and you know, you can get those ones that have articulating hands, they're okay, but I've had them all, and honestly, this thing is just, you need to get one, quite frankly, put it bluntly. It's called OmniFixo. I'm not sponsored by these people. I paid for this myself. They're not cheap. I think this cost me like $70 Canadian to get shipped here. But it's just amazing. It has these sort of spring-loaded clips. Everything's magnetic, so you can slide it around, and you can use it to hold wires when you're soldering wires together. You can use it to hold a microcontroller, which I do a lot of that as well, where we just reach over here and grab one. But you need to get, if I need to get a microcontroller, you know, held in place while I'm soldering things to it, it's just has served me really well. So highly recommend that. Sort of moving on near the end here, glues. So I use a number of different glues. I've done a lot of testing and sort of have my go-tos now. I print mostly PETG now. I do some nylon carbon fiber printing. I still do some PLA printing, especially if I'm sort of prototyping things just to test it out. And a lot of my older stuff that, again, you'll see in my Maker World, I've modeled parts for my receiver, our transmitters, like this, like these here. I've modeled a bunch of parts for my Red Cat Ascent Fusion that are available for you to download, as well as my Axial Capra. And a lot of it I got to glue to the body, and I don't want to like drill and put things in, you know, do that kind of stuff. So I glue a lot of it. I've done a lot of it with goop. This is probably my #1 go-to. This stuff is just amazing. It'll, you know, stick well. It actually dries flexible, so it allows a little bit of give in the product, and it holds up really well even through the elements. And I've had my, especially my Ascent through, well, the guys who I crawl with in the GTA here will know well, we go through all kinds of stuff, and we're often in water and in mud and whatnot. So this has held up really well. There are some times when I will also, especially I make another product on the side for Mazda Miatas called Neoluminate, and I use this quite a bit for gluing silicone. Well, I have one right here. Hold on, let me just pull it down and show you. Sorry for that knock on the camera there, but this is the extra LED strip that I make for that product, and I have to, this is a nylon carbon fiber, so PA6 CF product, end bracket, that I have to glue, and I have to seal the silicone inside as well as glue this to the silicone. And obviously it's silicone, and it's probably one of the only things that actually sticks to this silicone here. So that has been awesome. It keeps it waterproof, so I'm really happy with, you know, using it for there. But again, I do use this on a lot of RC stuff that I do, especially if I'm working around the wires. I don't want to seal up the wires. PL, I've just started using this specifically for TPU stuff that I've started printing. So I actually, and again, I can probably pop up a picture. Actually, hang on. This is a great example. So you've probably seen this as well. This is my Red Cat Ascent Fusion body that I modeled up, and I printed in TPU, and you see that ugly mess here. So this is interesting. Like I thought, well, I didn't think, I know, you know, it's flexible, good TPU. And, you know, many might think that this broke while I was out crawling. It's not the case. This broke while it was printing. So what had happened was there was a failure in the print job. This thing was printing, if I can show you in the camera, sort of on an angle like this. The printing was going like this. And something happened with the filament, if I remember right, where it stopped. And obviously everything had cooled down. and I had to fix the filament and had to start printing again. So it laid down a layer that stuck and it finished the job. But essentially, when I went to test it, it just snapped, right? Obviously, because it wasn't bonded well. I researched a bit about different products and found out that TPU, PL Premium is it. And this thing is probably a stronger bond than the bond between the TPU itself. So yeah, that's my go-to now if I'm doing any TPU work. If I have to glue TPU parts together, I'll be using the PL Premium for that work. So there is another product that I want to show you, and I'll just show you the example. The result of it is, where is it now? Hang on a second here. Let me find it. It is called Magic Resin. This is arts and craft resin. So it's 2 parts. You mix it together. It's clear. It looks like, according to the box, you can color it if you want, but I don't do that. And that is the end result of what it looks like. So that is a pour of resin into my LED light bar. And it also has allowed me to waterproof and seal all my electronics. I actually did another video as well on my Neo strips, or my LEDs that I did for the Fusion. And I actually poured this into the actual controller box that seals up the microcontroller and all the wires inside, which I have like 20 coming out of this thing. And I just had problems waterproofing that. So I just decided to do that pour. Yeah, and Kenny approves. Anyway, so guys, as I mentioned, I've got links to a bunch of the stuff in the description here. I do make a small percentage on the sales. I appreciate, and you don't pay any more, by the way, and I appreciate your support there. It helps me buy more stuff, to have more fun and do more videos for you. One last thing I forgot to show you was, this is not my model. This is another person's model, but it's been also very helpful for me to, you know, it's just a clamp. It's a 3D printed clamp. It helps you put different parts in the clamp to support other work. So useful. I mean, the only thing I have to worry about is that if you're doing heat work like soldering, you don't want to melt the plastic, because obviously it will melt fairly quickly. I printed that out of PETG. So yeah, anyway, again, guys, appreciate the support. Subscribe if you want to hear more stuff in the RC world, RC, especially in the crawler world. As my ongoing plight to modify my crawlers and do custom things and create 3D printed custom things for you to download. You'll hear about it on YouTube. Also, if you subscribe to my Maker World account, you'll then hear about it there as well. So you can get notifications of future stuff that I upload. All right, guys, have a great day.